The one thing that a lot of districts say is we don't have money. What they really mean is the money has been held up or the money is elsewhere.
Hey, welcome to the Alchemy K-12 podcast. I'm Clare Hollenbeck, along with my co-founder, Claire Harrison. And we're having another conversation today with William Shelley. Today, we're going to be talking about selling in an environment of uncertainty. And William, I'm sure, has some thoughts about that. So, William, thank you for joining us again for this.
Thank you very much. Always a pleasure.
So there's been a lot of uncertainty during this past several months. Thinking about the average salesperson, you as a sales leader advising the folks who work for you and taking, let's say, the example of supplemental education products that we're selling to K-12. Tell us about how you deal selling in an environment of uncertainty.
Yeah, and I think, my motto, and I've said it, I think, in the last podcast as well, people buy from people. And so the very first thing is you've got to target your relationships in those areas and really just go in and find out what's going on in the district. The one thing that a lot of districts say is we don't have money. What they really mean is the money has been held up or the money is elsewhere. When there is a sense of insecurity, because as a teacher, I taught for 11 years, you go through it's always these ups and downs. It's a cycle. Right. Education is a cycle. There's always some kind of disruption and there's always big ones. How do you deal with that, especially as a supplemental curriculum? And so one of the key things that I've always said is you want to have more than one contact across a broad range in a district. So you need to know where the funding is coming from. So if it's federal programs, this year federal programs was delayed a year, but only specific ones like Title II, Title III, and Title IV. Title I legally could not be. So Title I was still being dished out. So that's a place that you still need to go. Most supplemental sales are going to come from federal funds. The largest sales, most companies I've been in supplemental, 75% of their sales come from people that are using federal grants, whether it's, Title I for specific schools, or some districts can be Title I, Title II for professional development that can also be used to purchase materials if it's used in a training for teachers, Title III for English as speaker or other languages. Title IV is like a whole box of stuff, from gas money for buses to STEM. And so there's areas there in which you can, kind of migrate. The other place is within those districts is grants. Because when it does get tight, grants, they're going everywhere to get grants. And so getting to know, if it's a large district, they have grant writers coming in as a company and say, hey, we can help you write grants. You can provide them some of the context or text that's pre-written to help guide that process. You won't believe how many sales you can get just out of that.
Right. So you're helping them out and they end up designating you as the partner in the end.
Exactly. And the other place, and it gets lost in the wheelhouse a little bit because everybody wants to hit those big districts at the district level. When funds get tight, schools have money. Those principals do have dollars. So figuring out a strategic area to work your market. So if you have, let's say, the state of North Carolina, how am I going to figure out maybe top 10 or 15 districts that have the most bang for my buck that I can go into as many schools as possible and just do that old cold call, go in and start finding out target initiatives that maybe they've driven across the district, that the money has been pushed down into the local into the school level instead of at the district. So you're opening your bandwidth, and you're not just hitting your typical, I'm going to go in and knock on the door of the math person and the science person, and if it's high school, the department chair, and those ones that we always have a cadence of going back to, or that assistant superintendent, because at that point, that assistant superintendent may not have any control. There may not be a way that they can budget, and they may not want to see you. But there's other people. So there is a strategy around this. It's called working top down, bottom up. And so you're constantly meeting in the middle. And who are the ones that are going to get you top down to bottom up? It's these along this range here. So if I looked at specific people that I was going to look at is coaches.
Yeah.
Whatever you're selling, there are coaches usually in that district. Principals, guidance counselors. That's another pocket of funding that maybe they'll be able to do it. And then your federal, not just your federal programs administrators at the district, but a lot of schools will actually have federal programs people on the campus. So I can give you a little example of this. A district that I work with in Virginia, um, I went to a federal programs conference. Just went, I thought I'll go to this thing and see what I got. Took all of our products and supplemental, so we had everything, all kinds of things. And at the end of that, did not have a way to get that back, was dishing that stuff out like candy and putting cards out. I gave a lot to one larger district. And just from that, they're like, hey, why don't you come in and talk to us in my federal programs? I said, I can do a lunch and just for your people to district. If you got 5 or 6 people, we'll come in and you can bring people in all this. So it was 3 weeks later, I hadn't heard back. And all of a sudden they're like, hey, we'd love you to come in. But what we want you to do is come in and go with our 40 federal programs folks that are in the schools. And we want you to come and provide Subway or whatever for all 40. And you've got 3 hours and you can go
Wow.
through all of your solutions and how they fit the needs of this district. That is how you get in the door from giving,
Mm.
just because those little people, they didn't have a lot of money, but they had it at the school level. And for supplemental sale, I think it went up $250,000, but they were all little tiny POs and they were coming in left and right and left and right. So you're able to go in and target when they don't have a lot of funds and hit people across the a swath because that Title One funds is always going to be there. There's no way unless Congress comes in and says no, and that'll be even literally an act of Congress to get that done. That you would still have those monies. So there's pockets of
Mm.
pieces. You can't just go to like you can't just go in and shake hands and their strategic action plan says that they're developing STEM across the board. Well, they may have held those funds up. I'll give you another place too. So when they're going in, one of the best places, and you can actually look it up and find this data. If it's all housed in one place, that's great. You can find data for brand new schools that are being built
Mm.
because
Right.
those are construction funds. So in this time of need, and you can't find it, find your new schools because they will buy anything and everything in using those construction funds when they're building out labs, when they're building out whatever, they'll buy manipulatives for their whole school district, or I mean, under those funds. So they have very creative ways to do it. So as a sales rep, my advice is no means yes. But it may, and it also means maybe, but what it always means is I want to have a next conversation and
Ah.
I want to make sure if you go in and they say no, well, what else are you all doing? What are some things that maybe you would think that I could go and talk to someone about? Uh, you know, all they can say is no. I mean, literally, when you're in
Right.
sales, I mean, what are going people are going to do? They're just going to say no. So there's no reason to be afraid or sitting home and saying, well, nobody's buying. You've got to find a way to pivot. And
Mm-hmm.
whether it's the pandemic, whether it's the funding that's been delayed here, there's always something that's going on. End of day, no matter where you're at in the U.S., local school districts and especially in rural areas are really powerful because that's a community place. And no matter what happens in those places, when those things get upset, the carts, those people will shout enough to where those monies will be funded. That's from personal experience of seeing it. So you don't
Mm-hmm.
always have to hit the big boys, the large,
Right.
large, large districts. There's other ones out there to go and hit. So with all that said, it's expanding your breadth within a district. It's expanding your breadth within a market and going to places that you haven't before and then going deeper in places that you have.
Excellent advice.